Okay, brilliant. So I thought we would, we're going to start in standing with just, I suppose, some sort of easing out things. And our focus today, so start by settling down. So it might be just having a little look at your feet, checking they're there. Our focus today is sort of hips and shoulders, because I often find if my hips are stiff, working on my shoulders helps and vice versa. And quite often, we're going to start by swinging our arms out to the sides and crossing them in front of us. That's it. And quite often, both the hips and the shoulders can be stiff. Sheila, if being in standing is challenging for you, just make sure that you keep moving. You could be bending your knees a bit more than you might do normally and having your feet a bit wider apart. So a few more times, just swinging your arms out to the side, crossing them in front of you. That's nice, good. I can see people have moved around, so they've got space to swing their arms. And then let's let that one go and just give the legs a little shake out. And if anyone is, again, like Sheila, been doing a lot of gardening, you could just do this one where you bend your knees and give your pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. So that's nice. If standing isn't feeling, well, even if it is feeling comfortable, it's always good to have a little wiggle out. And then I'm just going to turn sideways on because we're going to come to swing our arms, but we're going to swing our arms forwards and back now. So again, you might be all right here, or you might need to change how you are on the mat. So let the arms come up and let the arms swing back. And again, that's nice, really lovely, good. And a couple more times. Good. Okay. And then let's just see how we feel coming into a forward bend. So let the arms sort of shake out now. And again, if you need to give your legs a little shake out, do so. And with your feet a little distance apart, we're going to come into a forward bend and just really see how it feels to fold forwards at this point in the class. So you could bend your knees a bit and come to this place where your elbows are resting on your thighs and you're letting your head go. And you can, just have a couple of breaths there. If it all feels really easy and comfortable, you can release your arms to the ground. But it just really depends on how your body feels. It's going to depend on what you've been doing, as we always know, over the last few days. So you can either stay with your elbows on your thighs or you can release your arms. Maybe just wherever you are, a big sighing breath or two. And try to let your head go. So from here, we're going to come back up into standing. You could, if your back is feeling a bit vulnerable, walk your hands up your thighs. And arrive back up in standing. Good. And what we're going to do now is the one where we swing, sorry, it's a bit dark on my screen. Hopefully if I move around, it might brighten up. We're doing this one where we swing our arms, good. And we let our feet move. So don't leave your feet stuck on the ground. Let your whole body come along, that's it, good, with this movement. Swinging your arms from side to side. And then we're going to alternate this movement with then sort of settling down in standing and gathering our attention into our breathing in a moment. So you can then let your arms go. You can look down at your feet. You can settle your feet on the floor. And you're going to bring one hand onto your belly and one hand onto your chest. And if you like, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. And then just see what you notice. Can you feel your body responding to your breathing? So maybe you feel your chest or your belly, or both, or neither one, responding to your breath. And it is usually easier to feel our breathing if we close our eyes. So you can close your eyes, let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Maybe just one or two more cycles of breathing. And then come back again to what we were just doing. Come back to swinging your arms, letting your feet move, letting your whole body be part of this movement. And again, just noticing what presents itself to you in your field of awareness. So if your shoulders are stiff, it might be tightness in the shoulders, tops of the shoulders, between the shoulder blades. You know, if your lower back's feeling creaky, it could be that area, or your hips. Good. A couple more times. And then we're going to, again, once more, sort of let this go, settle down in standing. I'm just going to come a little bit nearer, because what I want you to do now, you don't need to kneel, stay in standing, is to bring your hands onto your low ribs. I've got my thumb going round towards the back of my body. And then here, just see what's it like to settle here, and see if you can feel your low ribs responding to your breathing. So again, it might be that you close your eyes. It's probably more helpful to let your elbows come slightly forwards rather than back, yeah? So if you close your eyes, can you feel this sort of widening and narrowing around the middle of yourself as you breathe in and out? And again, don't worry if you don't feel that movement. We all breathe in different ways, and all the ways we breathe are fine and valid. Let breath flow in and out through your nostrils, if possible, as long as you're not blocked up with hay fever or a cold. Okay, let's let that go and come to the backs of our mats, because we're going to come down and we're going to do a little, I suppose we're going to move through a little mini sequence. So come to the back of your mat and bring your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. And just for a moment, feel your footprints on the floor. Feel the contact of your hands. Let a breath come in. And as you exhale, you're going to take your arms down and then up. You're going to drop your shoulders away from your ears. And then here, you're going to just start to bend your knees a little bit. Gather your elbows in. You can bring your elbows onto your thighs, or you can release your arms down into a forward bend. And have a couple of breaths in this forward bend. See how it feels. Again, let your head go. Wherever you are, just let your head go. Feel very rooted into your heels. And then from your forward bend, you're going to start to walk your hands forwards into dog pose. So you may need to bend your knees a bit more to get your hands onto the floor. And you're going to walk your hands forwards. Don't stop walking just because your heels come up. And yeah, come into a dog pose, and then a few breaths in dog. So you might well be wanting to bend one knee, bend the other knee, particularly if the backs of your legs feel tight. And also if your upper back feels tight between the shoulder blades, yes, that's nice, Kayla. Bend your knees, bend both knees. Good. So maybe one more cycle of breath in this dog pose. And then we're going to come down onto hands and knees. So when your knees come onto the floor, then settle yourself. So you've got your shoulders under your hands and your knees under your hips. And you're going to come to your cat movements. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. And as you move into these rounding and dipping movements, just letting your breath flow in and out through your nostrils. So when we round our back to the ceiling, it's really nice to let the head hang and feel wide across the upper back. When we dip our spine down to the floor, it's nice to let the shoulder blades sort of slide down the back a bit, and the neck feels lovely and long. So a couple more times rounding and dipping. And then staying on hands and knees. If at any point you need to come down onto your elbows because your wrists are feeling uncomfortable, of course do that. But I was going to say, we're going to do a bit of tail wagging. And so I feel like I've been drawn to doing the version where I'm swinging my lower legs from side to side. And that sort of wags my tail for me. So that's one way you can do it. And as you know, there's this one, if you go reasonably slowly, you could look towards your feet as they come down on one side of you. If you go more quickly, I probably wouldn't look at my feet. You can also stop taking your legs from side to side and just imagine you have a tail and wag or swish your tail from side to side. Good. And then I think we should take our weight, we should all take our weight off our hands. So just coming out of your tail wagging, come back to rounding your back to the ceiling and then rock your hips back over your heels and just settle down in child pose for a couple of breaths. So that's it. You can take your knees wider apart if you like. Let your elbows rest on the floor. That's it, good. So you're feeling really soft and relaxed across the back of your shoulders. Let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. And then staying in child pose just for a moment, you're going to then slide your hands forwards on the floor. So you are letting your elbows come off the ground. So sort of slide the hands forwards. That's it. And then come up onto hands and knees where your hands are. So you're probably going to be in this longer hands and knees. That's it. And if your hands are somewhere strange, just organise them so they're sort of shoulder width apart. And I just want you, not pushing this at all, particularly you, Sheila, it's just a little bit of what's it like to start to rock your weight forwards. So you're not really at this point going all the way into face up dog, unless you feel utterly compelled to do so. You're just a little bit more thinking, okay, what's it like to lengthen out here? You can, yeah, just once or twice more. Okay, we will come back to this later on. So it's just really a little taster. And then either come and sit back in kneeling, or if kneeling's not good for you, be an up kneeling and give your hands a little shake out. So the hands can have a shake out. You can also touch the backs of your wrists together and give your hands a little wiggle. And then we're going to come back through dog pose and a forward bend and back into standing. So big handprints back on the floor, tucking your toes under, let a breath come in as you exhale, rock your hips back over your heels, pick your knees up off the floor, come back into dog pose, and then again just maybe a big breath or two. How does dog pose feel? Do you need to bend one knee? Do you need to bend, walk on the spot a bit? Do you need to bend both of your knees? What can you do to make your dog just a bit easier, a bit more comfortable, a bit more enjoyable? And then from dog, we'll start to walk our hands in towards our feet. So we come into our forward bend again. And again, remember, you've got these options. You can either let your arms hang, or you can rest your elbows on your thighs. So whichever you do, it's probably good to have your knees a little bit bent, or at least soft, and let your head go. Now, if you need to walk your hands up your thighs, then do that to come into standing. If you can let your arms hang, now touch the backs of your hands together. And as we exhale, we're going to roll up into standing, trailing our hands up the front of our body. And then we take our arms straight up to the ceiling, we breathe in, and then we exhale, take our arms out in a big circle. Good. And then just give your legs a little shake out. So we're going to come and now work a little bit sort of on our feet, and then do a couple of little mini balances. So actually the first thing we're going to do is more working on the hips as well as the feet. So possibly, I tend to do these with my hands on my hips. And you're going to come onto the ball of one foot. And then we're going to see how is it to swivel on the ball of that foot and let your knee come in and out. So the reason I've got my hands on my hips is I'm not really moving my pelvis. I'm trying to move my leg in my hip joint. Good. Sort of in and out. So most of us know this movement, but I've been playing around with a different one, which is now, can you draw a circle with your knee? Yeah, so can you draw a circle with your knee? Good, well done. So that's it. And could you draw the circle now in the other direction with that knee? And as you do that, feel how you're sort of circling, you're moving around, aren't you, on the ball of your foot? Very nice. Okay, well done. Let's have a little shake out and try the other side. So, yes, so come onto the ball of your foot. So first of all, we were just going from side to side, letting our knee come to the right and to the left. That's it. And then you're seeing what's it like to draw a circle with your knee. And it's up to you how big your circle is. That's it. So try and draw a circle with your knee going one direction. When you've gone one direction a few times, can you draw a circle with your knee going the other direction? So although we're drawing a circle with our knee, where we're really moving is into our hip joint. And we're also massaging around on the ball of our foot a bit. Okay, good. Have another little shake out of legs and arms. And I'm just coming side on because what we're going to do now is one foot at a time. So maybe come back and work on your first foot as you're going to slide the foot back behind you and come onto the top of your toes. So you're stretching out the front of your ankle. And then we'll do this on the other side. I think we'll do this twice on each foot. I rather like these ones. They're coming onto the top of your foot. So I'm just going to go and ask Gemma not to empty. Gemma? Okay. I thought she was going to empty the dishwasher and make a load of noise. Okay. So once more on each side. Good. I wasn't really expecting to see either child before the end of this class, but I should be pleased they've got up. Good. Okay, so we're just going to come into a forward bend now, and then we're going to do a little bit more, take this into, no, sorry, we're not going to come into a forward bend. We're just going to do a little bit more feet and a mini balance, and then a forward bend. Yes, that's right. So what I'd like you to do now is coming up onto the balls of your doing your weight forwards, that's it. And a few times coming up and down. And I always find when I start off doing this one, I sort of think, oh, am I actually going to get any sort of lift off? What's going to happen? So that's why I find it helpful to come up and down a few times. How does it feel? And then if you feel steady enough, you could stay there. You could let your arms float up. Let your shoulders drop and just have a couple of breaths here, balancing on the balls of our feet. That's it. Trying to feel as steady as we can to our best ability. Good. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Good. And then when we come down from this balance, we'll go straight down into a forward bend. So you could bring your elbows onto your thighs or your arms down towards the ground. Good. Just have, that's very nice, lovely. Just have a breath or two in your forward bend, knees as bent as you like, noticing how your lower back feels. Good. Very nice. And then sink into your heels, roll back up into standing. Good. Have a little shake out of your legs if you like. And actually, just before we move on into another balance, come back to this one, just once on each side where you're coming onto the top of each foot in turn. And a little stretch out the front of your ankles. And obviously this is a little mini balance, isn't it? Because we have to take our weight into one leg. And then have a look at your feet. Feet a little distance apart. And then stop looking at your feet. Start to sway a little bit from side to side. And as you do this, you could close your eyes if you like. I just want you now to get a sense of what's it like to start to take your weight over one leg and then the other. So with your eyes open or closed, open is fine. Just what's it like to bring your weight over your right leg and foot? What's it like to bring your weight over your left leg and foot? So we're going to come into a little mini tree pose in a moment, and you're just, from this swaying, you're going to decide which foot you're going to stand on first. And then what I'd like you to do is come back to hands on your hips. Come back to this movement we were doing, not the drawing the circle with the knee, just the knee coming in and out. So that for our tree pose, we can let our knee come out to the side, but keep our pelvis facing forwards. And then we'll bring our foot onto our ankle. So it's just a mini tree. And we'll bring our hands into prayer pose in front of us. And then we'll we'll just see what it's like to be here. We have the intention of sort of settling quietly. So hands in prayer pose, thumbs resting on the breastbone. We have this intention of, yes, settling quietly, but the reality may not be quite the same. And just noticing what you feel in your body. So it might be that you feel a bit of a wobbly foot on the floor. It might be that you feel your hip. It might be that you feel your breathing. You might notice tightness in your shoulders. See if you can have another breath or two here. Very nice. Well done. Come down, have a little bit of shake out. And then let's try the other side. So back to hands on the pelvis, hands on the hips, back to that movement where the knee is moving to the right and to the left, but you're not letting your pelvis move. And then when the knee is turning out to the side, we can bring our foot onto our ankle. Now, of course, here you could keep your big toe or even a few of your toes on the floor to help you feel more steady, or your foot could come completely onto your ankle. And then let your hands come into prayer pose, because that bringing the palms together in front of our heart can help us feel a little bit more sort of centered and stable. Good. And then again, just, how is it on this side? What do you notice? How easy or difficult is it to settle? Can you connect with your breathing? Can you let your shoulders soften? Very nice. Good. Another breath or two. Yes. Come down when you're ready. Have a little shake out. Okay, and then we're going to come to the backs of our mats again. We're going to come down once more through a forward bend and dog, but then we're going to do something a little bit different when we reach the floor. So come to the backs of your mats, touch your hands together in prayer pose. Let a breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Feel long and tall, and then as you exhale again, start to let your knees bend, let your elbows bend, coming down into a forward bend. So you can have a couple of cycles of breath in your forward bend, and then walking on into dog pose when you're ready. Okay, so forward bend and then dog pose. I just need to grab my water from the kitchen. Where are we? Yes, lovely, very nice dog poses. Hopefully dog poses may be feeling a little bit easier or just starting to ease out. Now this time, when we come down onto hands and knees, we're going to sit down and lean back on our hands and bring our feet into cobbler pose. So I thought we would do a few things for our hips now in sitting before we come back up and maybe do a little bit more tree pose. So see how it feels. So you're leaning back on your hands, you've got the soles of your feet touching, or maybe your feet open a little bit like a book. Yes, there's all sorts of things we can do here, aren't there? So it might just be that you want to sit here and let your knees feel heavy. It might be that you want to do a little bit of rocking. That's it, yeah. That's nice. What else could you? So rocking is always good. Holding your feet. You could do a little bit of sort of circling. So a bit like earlier we drew a circle with our knee. Now it's a bit like you're drawing a circle on the ceiling with your head. Although that might make you feel a bit peculiar. Okay. And we could also do these ones where we're sort of leaning onto one arm and the other arm reaches up and over. But just, yeah, don't feel that you have to do any of these. If you feel happier just sitting in cobbler pose, leaning back on your hands, you can do that. So we'll now move on to pinwheel, and we'll probably come back and do a few more of these cobbler poses things in between sides. So let one knee come on top of the other knee and let your top leg slide back. Good. And then a little bit of circling here. So again, we're sort of circling around our sit bones, shifting the contact of our pelvis on the floor. If your shoulders are feeling quite stiff today, you can do this giving yourself a hug. And I've got my hands sort of right on the ball of my shoulder, and then I can let my head hang a bit. And this, yeah, so if your shoulders are feeling a bit creaky, this can be quite nice. You don't have to do it. If you don't like it, you don't have to carry on with it, but it's an option. Good. And then what we'll do is we'll come into our pinwheel forward bend. So obviously we need to release our arms at this point. We turn towards this knee that's going out to the side. And then we fold our body down over that leg. So we're trying to, that's it. So we're not trying to go beyond the leg. We're really trying to sort of make a sandwich in a way of our chest. And the filling in the sandwich is our leg. And the bottom of the sandwich is the floor. And so by giving the weight of our body, that's it, Rashmi, that's well done with your sandwich. So by giving the weight of your body down through your leg onto the floor, it just sort of helps that leg undo a little bit, that hip joint. So try to just sort of settle, soften, breathe, and yeah, enjoy if possible for another couple of cycles of breath. And then we can walk our hands in towards us. So we come into our upright pinwheel again. You can lean over to the side you were just folded over. You can slide your back leg on top. So we come to the side sitting. We can open out again in Cobbler Pose. And it's nice to have a couple of breaths here. Again, you could lean back on your hands. You could rock. And it's nice to, I always find between sides of pinwheel, I'm sort of surprised how much you could come to this one, reaching to one side and then the other. I'm always surprised how much Cobbler Pose has eased out. Yes, you can do a little bit of side to side. And then we'll move on to side 2 of pinwheel. So let your knee, we're going the other way now, your knee comes on top of your knee, your top leg slides back, and you're doing a bit of circling here. And remember, you've got this option of giving yourself a hug. So if that was helpful for your shoulders, you can do that again. In this one, I really try and bring my hands onto the sort of bony tops of my shoulders, and then they can sort of just rest there. Hang on. And then that's nice, lovely. And it also sort of really widens us across our upper back, this one. And then whenever you're ready, we're going to do the same, make that same sort of sandwich. So we're going to turn towards the knee that's going out to the side. And then we're going to fold down over that leg. So we think about our chest being sort of, I suppose, one side of the bread in the sandwich, the floor's the other side. And then our knee is the filling. And we want that feeling of the sort of weight of our body, of our chest, of our shoulders settling down to the floor through the knee. And you're softening as much as possible here, just trying to be in a comfortable place. It might be your hands on the floor, it might be your elbows on the floor. For some of you, it might even be your forehead on the floor. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then do walk your hands in towards you. And this time when you come up, lean back on your hands and give your legs a little bit of a lengthen out. So we're going to come back up into standing now, but we will, hopefully, if we have time, we will revisit these movements again a little bit later on and see how they feel. So let's come back onto hands and knees. Big handprints on the floor. Let's tuck our toes under. We're going to move through dog pose, have a few breaths in dog, and then on to a forward bend, and then up into standing. So coming into dog pose, and yeah, seeing how your dog pose feels now. As you exhale, letting your head go. What can you do to feel wide across the back of the shoulders? So often it's that feeling of resting through the arms more. Resting rather than pushing, letting the head go. Say it again, but bending the knees, of course. And from dog, whenever you're ready, then starting to walk your hands in towards your feet. And ending up in a forward bend. And again, give yourself a breath or two in your forward bend. So we've got this feeling now. Either the arms are hanging or the elbows are on the thighs, but we've got this feeling that all of our weight is in our feet and our heels are very rooted into the ground. So if you need to walk your hands up your thighs, do so. Otherwise, touch the backs of your hands together. Roll up into standing, trailing your hands up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling, breathing in. Exhaling, taking your arms out in a big circle. Good. And then having a little bit of a shake out. So we're coming back now to some shouldery things again. So settle your feet down in standing. And again, Sheila, we're going to be moving in and out of standing. But if your back starts to feel it's hanging on, bend your knees, give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. So we're going to come back to something we did right at the beginning, starting to swing our arms and cross our elbows in front of us. And from here, we're going to be swinging our arms all the way into eagle arms. So this one, it might be that you give yourself a hug and then you come on into, that's the one. Give yourself a hug and then come on into this one, good, which we all know. Now, when I was practicing this last week, I was really enjoying when I was in standing with this one, resting my thumbs on my forehead, sort of almost that point between the eyebrows. So that may or may not work for you. And just finding that calming. And we'll also take this into a forward bend. So I normally like to take my feet a bit wider apart, as wide as the narrow edge of the mat. And then again, Sheila, if you need to rest your elbows on your thighs, release your arms. Just have a look at this point and see which arm is on top. And we can try and remember to the other side in a moment. So we're then going to bending the knees, see how it feels to come forwards. And just before you release your arms, make sure you've made a little mental note of which arm was on top. And then it's nice to release the arms and just let your arms be really floppy to the floor. So floppy arms, but staying very anchored through your heels. Give those arms away to the floor. And then let a breath come in. As you exhale, sink into your heels. Roll up into standing or walk your hands up your thighs. And then bring your feet to a little bit closer together again. And come back to swinging your arms. That's it. And then hopefully we can remember which arm we had on top last time. So we can then go on and give ourselves a hug with the other arm on top this time. So you give yourself a hug and then you go on into your eagle arms. And again, it won't necessarily work for you, but it might be here that sort of bringing your thumbs to your forehead can make this feel a little bit quieter. And then, of course, we can go on into our forward bend, stepping the feet wider apart, as wide as the narrow edge of your mat, sinking into your heels, bending your knees. How does it feel to fold forwards? Let your head go. Allow the weight of your crisscrossed arms to help lengthen out your spine, but of course, release your arms whenever you want to. And then, yes, on an exhalation, sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. And actually, yes, stay with your feet this little bit wider apart, and we can do a couple of those side lengthening movements. So we take one arm up and over, And as we've been doing recently, we let the bottom arm swing. And then we can swap sides. So I'm taking my pelvis towards my raised arm side. You don't have to do that. And the bottom arm's swinging. Oh, I just find it really helps me to be a bit more comfortable. So we can do this perhaps a couple of times to each side. Top arm up and over, pelvis moves in that direction. We let the bottom arm swing. Okay. Once more. Good. Okay. Very nice. Let's have a little shake out. And we're going to do another thing for shoulders. So if we come back to hands in prayer pose in front of us, back to feet being a little distance apart. And so from here, you're going to exhale. You're going to take your arms down and then up. And you're going to touch your hands in prayer pose over your head. I'm just going to come kneeling so you can see me. And then from here, you're going to bring your hands, this delightful one, onto the base of your neck. Yeah? That's it. Not the most comfortable place in the world. And then one arm at a time, we're going to take our one arm out to the side, turn the palm so it faces back, and then bring the hand up the back a little bit, the back of the hand. And then we do the same thing with the other arm. So take the other arm out to the side, turn the palm so it faces back, bring the back of your hand up your back. And then carry on circling. So take your first arm back up again, so it comes onto the base of your neck. And then the second arm. Good, and so on. So keep circling your arms. So take the first arm down, back of the hand going up your back. And it really depends. These are quite tricky. Some of you might find you could touch your hands in prayer pose behind your back. Some of you might find you can touch your fingers when you do this one, cow arms. Yeah, but just keep moving and not forcing anything. Okay, good. Okay, just sort of keep it fluid, keep it easy. We'll move through each cow arm side. Cow arms is when you've got one arm up and one arm down. Each of those one more time. And then we'll have a good shake out. Now, I want us to come back to tree pose. So it could be tree pose with your foot on your ankle. It's going to be part of a little sequence. I'm just wondering whether I should show you. I might actually just show you because there's a few things going on here and you don't have to do all of them. So the first thing we're going to do is actually take one arm up, so that the foot we're going to stand on. And from there, we'll then bring our foot into tree. And you could bring your foot higher up if you like. But then the first thing we're going to do with tree is then bring our hands. So the top hand will come to the base of the neck and the other hand will come up our back. Then we can bring our hands on into prayer pose if we like, and even up here. Okay, so there's just a few little things going on. You don't have to do them all, but I just sort of keep us on our toes. So maybe just decide to start with which leg you're going to stand on. So whichever leg you're going to stand on, you're going to start by taking that arm up. And as you reach up into that arm, you're starting to shift your weight onto that leg. And as the other foot comes off the floor, you're going to bring that foot into tree pose. So it can be on the ankle or it can come a bit higher up. Good. And then once your foot's in place, can you bring your top hand onto the base of your neck and then the other hand up onto your back, like we were a moment ago in eagle arms. So can we have a little bit of awareness in the back of our body, perhaps a little bit more than we usually do? And you can stay here for a few breaths. If you like from here, you could move your hands then on into prayer pose. And don't worry if you topple out, you can just come back into your tree. You might like to settle in with your hands in prayer pose, or you might like to let your arms grow up. And that's obviously when we feel like most tree-like. So our arms are our branches. Good. Very nice. Lovely. Again, you might like to finish bringing your hands back into prayer pose in front of you. Very nice. Lovely. Come down. have a little bit of a shake out. So I think it's always really interesting in balances. Sometimes when we have more to do with our arms and our hands, we can actually feel steadier. Not always, sometimes it makes us feel more wobbly. Let's try the other side. Let's reach up with the other arm. That's our starting point. And then we start to take our weight into that leg. And then we're going to bring the other foot on into tree pose, wherever we want to have our foot on the inside of our standing leg. And then that top hand comes onto the base of our neck. The back of the other hand comes onto our back. So can we have the sense of the back of ourselves in our tree? Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Very nice. And you can move on into hands in prayer pose in front of your chest if you like. See how that feels. Let your shoulders soften. Good. And then, of course, we can let our branches grow upwards in our tree, keeping our shoulders soft still. Good. Nice and soft as well into our palms, alive into our fingertips. Like all those beautiful fresh green leaves that are around at the moment. And then maybe finally hands down in prayer pose once more. Good. Very nice. Lovely. And then yes, a little bit of a shake out. Well done. And then let's come to the back of our mat and we're going to move down to the floor now. So settle down. Bring your hands into prayer pose in front of you. Maybe just have a quiet moment here where you feel the contact of your footprints on the floor. You feel the contact of your hands. You feel the flow of your breath through your body. And then letting a breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. And feel long and tall and standing. And as you exhale, bending the knees, bending the elbows, rolling forwards, maybe the elbows come to your thighs, or releasing your arms to the ground. And give yourself a couple of breaths in this forward bend, so seeing how it feels. We're sort of hopefully by now starting to feel more comfortable in a forward bend. Maybe it's more enjoyable. And then when you're ready, on into dog pose. And give yourself a few breaths in dog. If you look at your hands in dog pose, have your middle finger pointing forwards. That just helps us to be in a sort of more neutral position really in our shoulders and our wrists and our hands. And of course, you know all the things you can do in dog. Most of them involve bending your knees. If you're feeling terribly lively in dog pose and you'd like to do any of your one-legged dogs, you could do. That's only if you're feeling very, very lively. And from dog pose, from dog pose we will, so Rashmi, if you're wondering about one-leg dogs, you can look at me for a moment and basically you take one leg off the ground and you move the other leg, or you play around with where your other leg is. So, but yes, from dog pose, that's it. So if you are doing any of your one-leg dog poses, you can do. Otherwise, from dog pose, just quieten down into child pose for a few breaths. And then we're going to do some things on the ground. But I think maybe just let yourself have a couple of quiet breaths in child pose. Let your elbows rest down. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Okay, let's now, if you come onto hands and knees from child pose, let's step one foot forward. So we're not in a lunge yet. We're in this position where you've got your front knee over your front heel and your back knee under your pelvis. And if I was to come this way round, you've got a bit of sideways space. Yeah, so you want to feel, you're trying to feel steady here. So front knee is over your front heel. And we're turning towards our front leg. And we're giving away the back arm. We're trying to feel as steady as possible from the waist down. And then we can turn in the upper body and the shoulders. You could have your back hand on the back of your pelvis. Rashmi, I think you need more space sideways between your feet. More sideways space. And I think your front foot's too far forwards as well. I think your front foot needs that. That's it. Well done. Good. Good. Very nice. That's it. Yeah, much better. Good. And then from this here, you can untwist, and then we'll fold over our front leg, and we'll tuck our toes under in our back foot, and we'll take that leg into, with the back leg back. So we're coming into lunge, not just the leg, the whole of ourselves. And let's have a few breaths in lunge. So front knee is still over the front heel, but we've walked our back leg much further back. Our back knee's on the ground. Your toes could be tucked under or flat in your back foot. And we're trying to feel that our pelvis is heavy. We're giving the weight of our pelvis to the floor. We've got that delightful stretch through the front of our back leg thigh. And we're breathing and settling. Now, it's yes, from here, we will ease out. So when you've had another couple of breaths in lunge, you can untuck that back toe and then rock your weight back. So keeping your chest close to your thigh, we sort of ease back out of lunge. Look back behind us. And this then feels a bit more of a stretch. I've come onto the heel of my front leg, my front foot. Okay, good. And then let's do this on the other side. So we're going to come back first of all to where we've stepped our foot forwards a little bit. So remember, we've got that sideways space. So Rashmi, remember when you came into this one, we're doing the other side. You've got that sideways distance. So we've got our front foot, we've got our knee over our heel. It's not that's it. It's not a big step. Good. We're just trying to feel really steady here. And then we're turning. That's it. Turning towards the front leg. Good. So the hand, one hand comes to rest on the front leg thigh, the opposite hand. The other hand, you're either giving it away or it's resting on the back of your pelvis. We're trying to let the shoulders drop, particularly as we exhale. We're feeling wide across the front of the chest. And maybe this rotation starts to move us a little bit in our upper back, those sort of tight places between the shoulder blades. Good. Good. And then we can untwist. We can fold forwards over the front leg. We can tuck our toes under in the back foot and start to step that back knee further back. So we're coming into our lunge. We're finding that feeling of that stretch through the front of the back leg thigh. We're trying to give the weight of our pelvis to the ground. And we're having a few breaths here. So I tend to usually in lunge just look down. And by looking down, that can maybe help the shoulders to relax a little bit. And also maybe it helps you to give your pelvis down to the ground if you're looking down. I think maybe it just makes it feel slightly easier. It's not always that easy lunge, depending what you've been doing. Good. Rashmi, make sure your front foot is pointing forwards rather than being turned out. I can't quite see from here. Yes, looks, actually that's fine. I think it's your hand I'm looking at. Yes, very nice, well done. Then untuck your back toes. And same thing, keep your chest close to your thigh. You can come onto the heel of your front foot and ease back, looking back behind you. Good. And then we're going to come back onto hands and knees. And we're going to do some more cat. And we're going to take cat towards face up dog. But first of all, just come onto hands and knees and see how your cat movements feel. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. Good. Very nice. So if we want to try taking this into face up dog, and Sheila, just sort of go easy with this. What you can do is tuck your toes under, round your back to the ceiling, and then stay rounded to rock your hips back over your heels. And then at this point, you're going to need to walk your hands a little bit further forwards on the mat. Let a breath come in, and as you exhale, you're going to start to travel forwards, but you're rounding your back to the ceiling and looking back behind you. You can watch your pelvis coming forwards. And when your shoulders are over your wrists, you could then, yes, let your pelvis hang, untuck your toes. So shoulders down away from your ears. Could you reverse that movement? So could you start to go back? Could you tuck your toes under? Could you round your back? Rock all the way back. Let a breath come in. And as you exhale, travel forwards again, rounding your back, watching your pelvis coming forwards. Again, until you come into your face up dog. Yeah, very nice. We'll do this one more time. So again, it's that sort of reversing the movement to go back. Tucking the toes, rounding the back, looking back behind you. Let a breath come in when you've got your hips back over your heels, and use the out breath to bring you forwards. Keep your elbows straight. Yeah. If you bend your elbows, it probably makes it, that's it, a whole lot harder. Good. Very nice. Shoulders down away from your ears. Very nice. Wonderful face up dogs. Lovely, lovely. Fold back into child pose for a couple of breaths, and we'll do a little bit of tail wagging in a moment and take that into face up dog, and then I think we'll be ready perhaps really for a little lie down. Good. So from child pose, you can come back onto hands and knees. And you probably want to make a longer hands and knees, so a bit like the one we ended up in for face up dog. And we can just start to come back to our tail wagging, not using the lower legs now, because what we're going to do is wag our tail back to child pose. And then this side to side movement of our pelvis takes us forwards into face up dog. So we can do this 3 times, forwards and back. Backwards into child pose, this sort of tail wagging from side to side. So it's a very sort of reptilian movement. I say reptilian, it's obviously not like a tortoise, it's like a snake or a lizard. A sort of side to side movement. That's it, that can take us forwards to face up dog, can take us backwards to child pose. You've done this 3 times, if you have a quiet breath or 2 in your child pose, and then just before we do lie down onto our backs, we're going to do one last dog pose. And just see if we can sort of settle quietly in dog. But I think come into child first, so that you give your hands and your wrists a little mini rest. And just let your breathing settle and quieten. And then when we come into doing one, very nice, Sheila, that was beautiful. When we come into doing one last dog pose, we're just trying to be really sort of quiet and comfortable in our dogs, and as much as possible. So when you feel ready to do your one last dog pose, you can come onto hands and knees. You can tuck your toes under, just make your way into dog and see how it feels. And I suppose what I was thinking about in this last dog is just can we really feel our hands and our feet on the floor? Can we feel we've got sort of big footprints, even if the whole of our feet probably don't touch the ground? All of our feet feel really big, and then can our hands feel big? And then maybe there's a sort of chance to soften, very nice, and breathe in our dog pose, lovely. Really wide across the upper backs. That's it. Very nice. Yes, and from your dog poses, you are then going to make your way onto your yes, you have your hands shake about. You're going to make your way into lying down on your backs. So it could be that you put something warmer on now. Kayla, I did see you had some long sleeve thing that's been coming on and off. So it might be a good idea to put it on now. We're going to do a few little movements on our backs. We're going to come to some hip things. I was hoping we'd have time to do a bit more pinwheel and cobbler pose, but we've run out. But we might do some similar things on our backs. But we've moved quite a lot today. So what I'd like you to do is just arrive on your back and, yeah, arrive. And just see how does it feel to lie down. And you can lie however you like. It could be with your knees bent. It could be with your legs long. And just, yeah, let yourself settle for a moment. Might be that a big sighing breath or two is helpful. It might be after lying for a moment or two, you feel that there's something you particularly want to do. There might not be. So I'm just going to give you a moment or so. If there's anything that you want to do lying down, that you can do it. Yes, Sheila, I think that's a very good idea for your back. And so I think once you've had a chance, everyone looks like they're just happy to lie down mainly. So that's it. Either lie with your legs long or your knees bent to start with. And the first thing I'd like you to do is just bring your attention to feeling the weight of your head on the floor. And let your shoulders rest back on the floor. And then start to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. So you're easing from side to side across the back of your head. Just keeping it sort of really comfortable, really lazy. And then find a comfortable place where you can settle the center of the back of your head on the floor. And if your legs are long, I'd like you now to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, the contact of the back of your pelvis on the floor. And then start to let your knees tilt a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. So it's really up to you with this movement. You can keep it small, you can make it larger. You can have a little bit of a play around. So it's really important we can take a little bit of time to play around with the movement to see, is it helpful for our body? Can we make it more helpful by making it bigger, making it smaller? That's it. Very nice. Yes, and what I'd like you to do, I think, Kayla, you might have your feet quite wide anyway. We're all going to join you. Is what I'd like you to do is just pause in the center and take your feet wider apart. So they're as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And then come back to tilting your knees from side to side with your feet wider. That's nice. And just see how this feels. Particularly pay attention to the knee that's moving nearer towards the floor. And are you allowing that knee to go as far as it comfortably can? That's it. Go from side to side. So this does take us towards a sort of pinwheel on our backs. So go from side to side a couple more times, and then we'll stay with the knees going down to the side. So obviously, Rashmi and Aditi, if you coordinate yourself, so you've both got your knees going down to the same side. So let the knees come all the way down to one side. If you need to slide a cushion under either of your knees and you've got a cushion to hand, you can do that. That's very nice. And then let your shoulders rest on the ground and let your head roll in the opposite direction to your knees. And you can then really focus on that shoulder becoming sort of heavy on the ground. Just let yourself have a couple of breaths here. So feeling the knees are dropping down on one side, the opposite shoulder is heavy and settled on the ground. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And in your own time, you can do the same thing on the other side. So you might want to come back to letting your knees rock a little bit before you go onto the other side, or you could just go straight onto the other side. It's entirely up to you. Lovely. And then again, if it's helpful to have a big sighing breath or two to help your knees settle. Remember, let your head roll in the opposite direction to your knees, as long as that's comfortable for your neck. And that just helps you feel that the opposite shoulder can rest heavily on the ground. So we've got this sense of the shoulder being rooted and the knees falling away in the other direction. And we're opening a little bit through the front of our body, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave us. In a moment, there's no rush, but when you come out of here, you can do one of two things. One would be to fold your knees into your chest. The other would be to lengthen your legs out on the floor. So maybe do whichever you feel more drawn to doing. That's it. And if you take your legs, if you fold your knees in towards you, you could also take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. And your arms, yeah, absolutely. Good. And then we'll just settle down quietly now. So if you did want to put a blanket over you, you could do. Knees bent or legs long. And what we'll do once you're settled is we'll rub our hands together and we'll bring our palms over our eyes just to give ourselves a little bit of darkness. So particularly Beata and Kayla, who you're used to coming on in the evening when it's dark now at the end, just certainly dark at the end. So rub your hands together. And if your hands are a bit cold, it's nice to warm them up. Rub your hands together. And then you'll bring your palms over your eyes. So you rest the sort of bottom of your hands on the cheekbone, on the sort of bone beneath your eye. Center of your palms are over your eyes. Your fingers are resting on your forehead. And we can just give ourselves this little bit of darkness. We can allow our eyes to rest and settle. Sometimes people like to let their head roll a little bit to the right and to the left with their palms over their eyes. And it's up to you. You can keep your palms over your eyes for longer, or if your arms get tired, you can bring your arms down to rest, either on the floor beside you or your hands on your belly. I'm just going to have a few more quiet breaths and then I'll ring the singing bowl. So just allowing yourself to be as sort of settled and quiet as possible. The breath flows in, the breath flows out. So thank you, everyone. Sheila, I hope you're okay. Oh, good. So yes, thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest